Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood was Armageddon. Mud Flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else about that topic unless they're willing to debate you. And that means no fisticuffs, no matter how triggered you get. I would normally be, welcoming RJ. I'm kind of waiting on him, hoping that he would come in. He probably told me his schedule, but anyway, was working hard on the stones today. Have a lot of I need to share the screen. That's what I need to do. That's got this thing that I show about the fair use because I'm going to be doing some looking at other videos today. Some good, some bad. Most good. This is a good day. I feel like I got so much done, and not only for the show, everything is for the Lord, but for my day to day. I need to stay in this productive routine that I'm in right now, and that's a big part of it. I want to, say hola to Marcella. Cheers. Now Sergio might be stopping back in. He said he'll try to stop back by. Now, where we're going to end up is going over how well Paul and JT did in presenting the overall view. This was absolutely, it just made me work harder, because I know I get it. I'm not young and handsome, but these guys did pretty good. There's, of course, there's a lot of things. I mean, I don't think they're ready to take on the Trinity, but they asked a lot of really good questions. I'm going to show the stones now that I downloaded today. Here, I picked this one here. I was trying to show my muscles on how hard I was working today, and it's finally t-shirt weather up here in the mountains, and that's not flexing either. Hey, we're going to be looking at this redoubt, and don't forget, I'm the Star Fort baby guy that used to say that's a Star Fort baby in 2016. Yeah, RJ and I, we know we did it. We don't need the credit, but when they're ready to move on, and these circular redoubts, not quite sure what this mega redoubt is, but I know that the bastions in the ocean are kidneys, and I'll show that today, tomorrow, or whatever. But it's all coming down to what they told us. I guess where are those pictures? Did I put them on the desktop? These are ones from the other day. I just did some new rocks. Should be 5 new pictures of 5 new rocks. I think I'm in the right area. Those are the ones from the other day. That's not it. That was a waste of time. Now I could be like, RJ, I have these pictures here, man. Here they are. So I just found this rock today, or yesterday, and I just dressed it a little bit today. So this is the original rock I saw laying in a Maverick. That's a chain here of like a 7-Eleven to you, or maybe a loafing jug or a Bucky's or something. It's one of those, a big one. They're really cool. Anyway, the broken pattern here of the rope, because the heart, is rope, and it's the Gordian knot. It had nice. So I thought this is very interesting, and this is when you untie it. This would be one layer, and it's really complicated there in the middle. But imagine that it's a body part. So there's another close-up view of some of the things that probably is a blood vessel, or every what you see, succulus, a gap in there, a hole, something. Remember the hearts were all beating, so this one just happened to be at a full unwind. It looks like, it's like, okay. And remember, every breath in is a swastika. Every breath out is a svastika with a V. It's same with the breath, same with your blood. Every pulse is in with the good blood, out with the bad blood. Some pictures from the other day because I accidentally went the wrong way. And so there's the other side of it, It's not the twisted part. The twisted part is what you saw first. So put a little olive oil on it. Probably not as good as coconut oil, but you can see now this is the edge of the rock. It just drops off. So you're seeing the face of it. This is all the face of the rock. Definite lines because it was caught in mid heartbeat. Amen. The stones are crying out, and that's where they're going to take it. So I polished it a little bit. So if you can't tell, this is still rough. This is you'll notice some difference. Well, now that look at the difference. See how just taking off that fine edge, you can see that these are on different layers, each twisting. There's 3 layers that have to be muscle groups, really, that twist and do. It's not a pump. It is zero viscosity. The perineum, the skin on the heart, is so thin that the pressures they're talking about for a pump are impossible. And everybody knows it. The American people know it. Want to see some other cool pictures? Okay. Here's some. There you go. That's titanium, they say. I just have an ultraviolet light shining through the bottom of it. Caught also in motion. But I have a lot of things, so we're going to have to move on. It's nice to see cool pictures. Who doesn't like tiger eye? Want to see the other side of it? Everything that you see as a gemstone was a liquid in the body. These smoky quartz, you can see the light passes through some, but not all of it. There's you have seen these pictures, and we need to move on, but we need to do it in order, as if RJ was here and I was going to be going like, did you check this out? This is that guy you sent me to. What was that timestamp I was supposed to listen to? It'd be something like that.
After all, this was my dad's Republican Party, the Eisenhower Party. But then the 1960s happened. The birth control pill was legalized in 1961. By 1964, 65, you had a full-on women's movement as a result of that, or facilitated in part by that anyway. The Vietnam War had become a touchstone, a point of contention for young people who did not want to go fight in a war that they felt was based on lies. And you had both racial minorities and gender minorities, the LGBTQ community and blacks and Hispanics, basically rising up and saying, no, we're not your slaves anymore. and we're not going to be second-class citizens anymore. Well, when that happened in the 60s, the
Whoa.
Republicans...
Whoa, wait, I thought he was going to save the big one. I want to welcome, look at there. I was going to make a special mention to the new, the people that are new. And if Sergio stops by, tell him don't be shy. Just hit, say, show him that is the link that's always there for RJ and for anybody else. And tonight is Sergio. You're more than welcome. I wanted to say, hey, as we go through and end up with, JT and Paul from Conspiracies Minded thing, understanding conspiracy, they did a really good job, but we're going to get to that. It made me think of my moderators because, you guys that have made the, what was that? Survived 9 months ago, the moderator purge, and then all of a sudden there was like 10 moderators, but we're the ones that have been around. We know what the dealio is, man. And we're going to be sharing it tonight big time and getting to the celebration that RJ and I have never made a penny off of this. And we know that other people, and you'll see a couple of them tonight, make their living now, talking about the short season and everything. And hallelujah, it gives us time to keep working on the stones that are crying out. And if somebody could remind me to show the Plague Islands and how they're kidney-shaped star forts, we can do that. Also, I'm not quite sure what they're talking about. Now, earlier, this is part, I probably saved this part. Let's hear it.
Maybe it is an unfathomable large number, but then they make war with the camp of saints, and then fire comes down from heaven and just ends it. It's over. That's
something. Okay, when you get a second, I want to go back to I had a movie analogy, and I think this is going to tie it all together.
No, I wanted to hear what this redheaded guy says. Paul,
kill each other for creating them, and then humans started messing with their own genetics and nephilimifying themselves and merging themselves with animals, and then you get chimeriid hybrids like mermaids and centaurs and all the other mythical creatures. Obviously, trying to talk about in your own series about the Nephilim returning, but then once they're dead, they're still stuck on Earth again, just disembodied. It's an endless cycle for these things.
Just a little bit further
here.
So
they have this parade every year, and they call it the Lord's Mare Parade, and they have these two. All
right, well, we'll listen for it later, but he's talking about the parts of where he can't understand. They have a couple of questions. Where are the sand of the sea Christians coming from? Because in their mind, they're looking for trillions and trillions, and we only have billions and billions of people right now. And I think what they need to do is take into account that we are temples of God, and inside us there are 5 different domains. See how that this says I don't use a green screen, I just use bright light, and it's weird. So anyway, that's it. What are they talking about? Did something happen today with Tucker Carlson? Because they start their conversation about something happened is up, and did Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin talk about Nephilim? Because if they did, we should probably look that up or talk about it pretty darn soon. That's what I was getting at. And a special thanks to all the moderators.
Backwards, keeping us down and suppressed, stupid way of viewing things, and now we're going through the scientific enlightenment industrial revolution route where mankind is going to take control of knowledge and information and bring ourselves out of the dark ages and into the light. This is Luciferian doctrine. Okay, this is the beginning.
Watch, these two guys have just been blown away And every time these two men get done talking, they just sit there like this guy here that has the biggest grin on his face right now. He said earlier he's had a chance to have people talk about Tartaria and the Star Forts and stuff, but he never had them on because he said it was a nothing burger to him. But when they explained that no, the Tartaria reign proves that Jesus was, ruling for 1,000 years in kingdoms, not nations. This guy said, okay, Tartaria went from nothing to the most important topic in my brain right now. So we'll have that to look forward to. What I was doing when I wasn't grinding stones, I was, talking about Tom here and this list from the 60s, but what did he leave out? What is the most important linchpin that I guess we've all forgotten about, and the Lord had to remind me about it when I heard this.
Late 60s, early 70s. He argued that if that ever happened, you would see three things. You would see young people ignoring their elders, not respecting their elders any longer. You would see racial minorities forgetting their, quote, place in society. And you would see women demanding equality with men. And all three of these things, according to Russell Kirk, would lead to social chaos and the destruction of our republic. And, when he first pitched this in the 1950s, he was largely laughed at by other conservatives. William F. Buckley and Barry Goldwater bought his theory and were proponents of his book, but the conservative mind. But most Republicans were like, we're still with Eisenhower. This was the 1950s, after all. This was my dad's Republican Party, the Eisenhower Party.
Getting ready for the JFK
but
fake
then the
assassination.
1960s happened. The birth control
What's
pill
missing from
was
this
legalized
list?
in 1961. By 1964, 65, you had a full-on women's movement as a result of that, or facilitated in part by that anyway. The Vietnam War had become a touchstone, a point of contention for young people who did not want to go fight in a war that they felt was based on lies. And you had both racial minorities and gender minorities, the LGBTQ community and blacks and Hispanics, basically rising up and saying, no, we're not your slaves anymore. And we're not going to be second-class citizens anymore. Well, when that happened in the 60s, the Republicans looked around and said, holy cow, Russell Kirk was a prophet.
Wrong. You just figure, it's just common sense. Okay, what was left out of the list? I'm going to give you a name, Madeline Murray O'Hare, and I'm going to type it in now into a new thing. So if anybody knows that what they left out in the 60s that was triggered by Madeline Murray O'Hare, now's your time. How do you spell Madeline? M-A-D-A-L-Y-N. I know how to spell Murray. Oop, one R. I think that's how you spell it. Americans activists supporting atheism, Holocaust denial, and separation of church and state. In 1963, she founded American Atheists. By 1964, they had banned what was sanctioned mandatory Bible reading. And if you don't remember Bible being read in public schools, I do. I was born when there were 48 states. I'm only 65 years old. Everything is brand new. And somehow people have forgot. Until 1958, when things started really changing. And by 1964, along with everything else, Mr. Tom, the pundit, financial pundit, a political pundit, and punditing his butt off in this one, he nailed it, right? He got it. A lot of them, but he messed up, or I think maybe the Lord left it for us to see. There was officially, and that changed. Now you can't do it. You can't talk about it. You can't mention, No wonder the Lord led me to start in the homeschool movement when I got out of the military in 1983. married in their church in 1984. That was a good one, Tom Hartman.
A tree planted by water. Do you remember the first psalm? Blessed is the man. It's very similar. That sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves remain green, and it is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. So that's obviously.
All right. So just the context of this video. This is a very famous James Tabor theologian, fairly conservative, does a lot of good things. In this, I think I have the same lost in translation thing where it's set up. Well, his deal is, perhaps it was this one. Just go back a little bit. In the context, he's doubting, he's thinking that Paul is overusing it. Blessed is the man. He goes, well, let's just hear a little bit.
Fathom it, and it's subject to the weakness of being flesh or mortal. Another way to translate it would be it's more problems is translation, and the other is context. And this is often the case with these misunderstood, lost in translation passages. Now I have the Greek Septuagint here, and I'm not assuming all people read Greek in my audience. Some of you might, and many of you won't. But you can see the Greek here. And what it basically says is the heart is deep. It's actually the word deep, batheia, right here, batheia. It's deep, it's complex, more than anything else, a human heart.
So what his position in this, are humans really desperately wicked sinners? Is kind of not. They're just deep and complex. Because he's saying, well, this is, the Apostle Paul's favorite verse, and he just pulls it out and uses it out of context every time. The heart's deceitfully wicked, who can understand it? And he goes through, in Jeremiah, pulling it out that maybe that's not what it meant. But in the context of Paul's time, they're not looking at it from a point of view of all of Asia has already departed Paul. The great falling away happened, and the true Christians were running for their life, and everybody else was thinking whatever they were thinking at the end. Because remember, at the end of the 1,000 years, it's a very desperate time. They were ruled with a rod of iron because our hearts are desperately wicked, very deep and hard to understand. Some of the things that we've been forgiven for. Am I true on that? You feeling it? I know you are.
And it doesn't say desperately wicked. It says very human, or just literally the word human. I think we know anthropos, even in English, right? It means a human being. It's very human. We say that all the time. I'm only human. When you say I'm only human, you don't mean I'm only desperately wicked. So this is really a passage that has been.
I think you might. I think you might. And I think that what was Paul was getting, who can know the heart of people? We're talking about a time when our God told us to embrace division, that we have a family, spiritual family we've been adopted into that made us different. Some of us are going to be able to bring family members along if they're faithful and, submissive and don't divorce their flat earth husbands and, okay, all right. They're in on it. But it's not Paul misusing it. It's globe lovers who don't know the context, who don't want to, who just want to beat this dead horse over and over again.
Those verses are not giving the idea of a pessimistic, dark, hopeless attitude toward humanity. In fact, these two verses say, blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord. And that's Lord, all caps. That's Yahweh or Jehovah or Hashem, as you say in Hebrew, whose trust is in the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water. Do you remember the first psalm? Blessed is the man. It's very similar. That sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves remain green, and it is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. So that's obviously the description of a good person, a person who trusts God, a person who lives the right kind of life. And then the next verse is the one that's mistranslated so often. What it really says in Hebrew is the heart is most crooked. It's the word akav or akov in this form here. And it is weak or sick, anush. The word for a human being is related to this word anush, enosh. Some of you know, and you've heard that son of man in Aramaic in the book of Daniel. I did a program on this recently. Is bar, son, enosh, son of a mortal, son of a human being. And so it's really talking about the weakness of humanity, how humans are mortal, they're frail, they need a lot of compassion.
All right. Get to the point, James. I mean,
Perverse in this context, but it's complex. But God can search the mind.
it just seems that you're staying on this.
This would be the proper, just way to judge the world. But the problem is, as he goes on to say very quickly, none is righteous, no, not one. Everyone is wicked. Everybody has departed. In other words, this would be hypothetically true.
It would be actually true if all of Asia had departed Paul. Or, they hadn't departed Paul when he wrote this to the Romans. But the Jews, they chose Barabbas. We're not going down that road, man. The heart of people is not up for debate. If it was or not for God, each one of us deserve hell.
Every human.
Did I get to the part of where in our 5 kingdoms that live in us, that's how they get to the number of the sand of the sea of the trillions and trillions? Because each one of us of a temple of God is being adopted to bring in the nephesh, those creepy, crawly things that live inside us. Some of them marry for life. They say, not me, they say that. They say they live in apartments. And when they clean out and fix up their apartments, and it's our earwax. Everything's working together. You know that you're a spirit, a magnetic torus, Mobius strip spinning in infinite enlemus, powered by a battery. And you're replaced every 3 to 4 years. Your cells just slough off. New ones pop up because of the living things that keep this temple doing its job. A little bit more. Wrap it up, James. Don't trigger me, though.
So does the Hebrew Bible say that nobody can be forgiven? Read Psalm 51, where David commits adultery.
Who makes that argument, James? You're way too old to be hanging out straw men and floating yourself softballs.
Well, the Hebrew Bible says that too. There's a quotation in Isaiah that our righteousness is like a filthy rag, the King James says. But if you look in the Hebrew, it's actually a menstruous cloth, something you would just cast away. So does the Hebrew Bible say that nobody can be forgiven? Read Psalm 51.
Where did the menstrual cloth and everything else bring up? So why do people say? Nobody says that. Nobody says that the Hebrew Bible says that people can't be forgiven, and everybody knows about the Bathsheba affair. I'll see why I had this keyed up.
He, he whose soul is not upright in him shall fail. So this is an internal test for your deepest inner being, your soul, as it's called in the Bible.
Now, Habakkuk 2 is one of the prophesied talking about Armageddon. We'll use the English Standard Version here. Now, the Habakkuk, that's an Old Testament prophet. It's very small and close to the end. We'll look at chapter 2. Well, look at the first one. Here's his complaint. Who does this? You nations, you're a hasty. He's raising up the Chaldeans. And okay, that was for the first one. Then the second complaint, we shall not die. The Lord, you have ordained them as a judgment, and you, O rock, have established them for reproof. I better get to the second chapter here. The righteous shall live by faith. The appointed season, woe to the Chaldeans, because if you woe to him who gets evil gain for his house. That sounds like Psalm 82, the same mistakes that the divine council made when they were judged. Why did you show favoritism? Woe to him who builds a town with blood. How about the United States building a country and colonies? Don't get me started on the Dutch and the English tea companies. Spain, Portugal, you think you're off the hook? France? You faking me with Napoleon? Time to get up here now. Woe to him who says to a wooden thing, but the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. Oh Lord, I have heard the report of you, and your work, O Lord, do I fear. In the midst of years, revive it. In the midst of years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came from Teman, the Holy One, from Mount Paran, Selah, a musical crescendo. His splendor covered the heavens. His earth was full of his praise. His brightness was like light, and rays flashed from his hand. This is the glittering sword, the barak, the lightning coming from his hand. Its splendor is covering the heavens. His brightness was like the light. Rays flashed from God's hand, and there he veiled his power, because nothing could survive he has to veil his power. Before him went the pestilence, when people will be talking later about when all of this has happened. They think it's 1755. They'll learn it's 1711. He stood and measured the earth. He looked and shook the nations. Then, the eternal mountains were scattered. All right. Do we have a time frame? We do. Do we have a time frame in the Bible? We do. It's in Ecclesiastes. There was a point in time where they could write that all of the streams and rivers flow to the sea to return, but now every continent has endorheic basins. And we know that some continents, call them what you will, I know that people love to call it Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu. I've heard of them all. But something got washed away. A lot of them a third of the people got dead. Just the pestilences. So, and this is describing it, so that's why we were reading it. We got here from the Madeline Murray O'Hare. Don't let me be the only one skipping around here. So these everlasting hills sank low. All right. The rivers aren't going to flow. And with this same glittering sword that he's burning in the whole meltology, like, whoa, the earth melted. I'm shocked. Well, he said they're going to melt like wax. And Midian's trembled. Everybody's going like, wow, oh my gosh, what are you doing to the rivers? But he's not mad at you. Are you mad at the sea and the rivers? No. When you rode on your horses, on your chariot of salvation, you, God, stripped the sheath from your bow, calling for many arrows. And these are lightning arrows also. Hello, deserts. Musical crescendo, if you don't mind. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and writhed. The raging water swept on. The deep gave forth its voice. It lifted its hands on high. The sun and the moon once again stood still in their place at the light of your arrows as they sped at the flash. Glittering sword, glittering spear, bundles of glittering arrows. You marched through the earth in fury. You threshed the nations in anger. And for 1,000 years, Satan couldn't deceive the nations. And now he can. You went out for the salvation of your people, for those who are called, chosen, elect, predestined, and have decided at one point in their life to get on their knees and confess that they are sinners. And once they have believed in their heart, they confess with their mouths, even if it's something like putting it in the comments. You crushed the head of the house of the wicked, laying him bare from neck to thigh. Okay, that'll do it. Calling for another musical crescendo. You pierced with his own arrows the head of his warriors who came like a whirlwind to scatter me, rejoicing as if to devour the poor in secret. You trampled the sea with your horses, the surging of mighty waters. Does it sound like Armageddon to you? I hear and my body trembles, my lip quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters my bone, my legs tremble beneath me. Yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon the people who invade us and those who will be encompassed about. We're in the same boat. Not what you think. This is a Roman Catholic. The Cathars were the favorites of the Masons. I wouldn't be surprised if they're behind all the disinfo. Oh, thank God for the Catholic Church. Always informative. The Jesuit decides to chime in, right? For the greater glory of God. Where's that come from? Oh, that's the symbol of the Church of Christian Liberty Academy satellite system, the largest Protestant homeschool for the greater glory of God. It's the Latin motto for the Jesuits, and the largest homeschool, Christian homeschool that I helped build. Well, I didn't know about the Jesuits, Rosicrucians, and the John Birch Society who funded the whole fiasco. But I've been in on this from the beginning, since I was a child, like in the 30s or something. So anyway, to them, the Inquisition was just a bunch of hogwash. It was like a good thing.
The Inquisition we think of today started in the 12th century. It was an attempt to preserve the unity of belief in the face of some unorthodox movements.
Oh, there's just some unorthodox movements. So they did the Inquisition. And you're going to get a new version of, and remember, Protestants, the mainstream, want you to accept these as your brothers and sisters in Christ. They just they don't even admit it's a mistake. It was a good thing that the evil people are saying, hey, we're the good guys. We should do that ecumenical movement thing.
The church had fought heresy before, but two particular sects were stirring up a lot of trouble. The Cathars and Waldensians were two
Yeah, what do they have in common? They didn't believe in the Trinity.
Excommunicated groups that held beliefs directly contradicting church teaching. They briefly held territories in France and Italy, coming to blows with local political and religious leaders. Both secular leaders and church
And that's another thing they do. They try to act like, well, the Protestants did things against the Catholics too. You cannot compare. You can't just say, it's the same argument. Well, the Utes killed some white people, so we exterminated them all. That is the old, what's that parable? You don't remove, you don't kill a mosquito on your friend's head with a hatchet.
Church authorities had an incentive to suppress their views to restore peace. In light of the intensity and broad reach of these movements, the church developed a formal process for rooting them out. The Inquisition
They got to root them out.
methods. Sentences for convicted heretics were usually light. If the defendant repented, he or she could be reconciled with the church. A penance as simple as wearing a cross sewn on one's clothes or going on pilgrimage were common. For willful, unrepentant heretics, however, canon law required that the defendant be handed over to secular authorities for final.
Sounds like what they did, to Jesus.
Just that. A 1578 Inquisitional manual writes, "For punishment does not take place primarily and per se for the correction and good of the person punished, but for the public good, in order that others may become terrified and weaned away from the evils they would commit."
Now, do you think that, let's just say that the evil that they would commit would be personal medical decisions? And other people would think, and have been trained to think, well, if they don't do the same medical science I believe in, they can get me sick and I would die. So, gosh, we've warned them and warned them and warned them.
One Dominican priest, Heinrich Kramer, wrote a witch-fighting handbook entitled Malleus Maleficarum, Hammer Against the Witches. In 1484, when he asked the Vatican to grant him inquisitional authority, he was ignored and his local bishop expelled him for making false accusations. Inquisitions reached their...
They were actually the good guys, stopping people from doing those horrible witch burnings and torturous.
their heyday around the time of the Protestant Reformation, and by the early 1800s, most countries had abolished them. The Vatican's Inquisition never officially ended. It morphed into the dicastery for the...
What? What'd he just say?
Officially ended. It morphed into the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, which aims today to spread sound Catholic doctrine and defend those points of Christian tradition which seem in danger because of new and unacceptable doctrines.
Right. Some doctrines, like I'm sure what you people think is pretty unacceptable to what these guys think, who want you to believe they built this. All right. Look at us. We're moving on. Purpose of the tunnels. I was looking at this again. I wondered if I got anything good. I had the treasury of merit, how crazy the Catholic Church is, the merit of God and the Virgin Mary. The treasuries include the Blessed Virgin Mary's because her works are truly immense. Her prayers and good works. They're unfathomable, even pristine in their value before God. It's like, wow, they're part of, so together they make up that mystical body thing. That's simplifying it, I know, but I was looking at something here. Let's see. I'm going to have to hit the back button. This is the city, Heath, Kent. Civil parish. Not much of a town hall as far as town hall goes, but they got, this is an old picture of it. They don't want you to see how big it is so the canal was fascinating me here because it looks like, and these Martello towers, 4 of them. Okay, so this must be one of them. 1830. That's the type of it. And anyway, here's that Royal Military Canal. This was built, so they say, because they were afraid of Napoleon. So I just hit the back button and found out that it was a UK Parliament constituency, abolished in 1950 general election. Okay, but they still left the tunnel, the canal, the Royal. So I looked up that guy. Oh, I got there from this guy, and he lived in this town. This is how I rabbit trail it, and that was the closest thing to my name, which kind of it means mason. It means somebody that hewed stone, I think is what they say, that names mean what their jobs were. So I got their second page. I was looking for Haight or Hughes, and I didn't find him. I looked up William Acton Jr. because I saw a video. So this should have been the start of it. Yep, I picked a new tab. Now, if I go to here and my history, so that you can go back in case, you don't have time to save all of them. Now, which one am I looking for? So these are,
and these 4 articles alone make up these articles, which are more tightly linked to each other than they are to other articles in the rest of the network. In total, the algorithm detected 44 different communities. The idea behind finding these communities is to group similar articles together, since, in theory, articles which are more closely linked to each other should also have more similar content. In order to test this theory, I looked at the categories for each of the articles and
you looked at everything.
All the other dots the same size and color. Now we can plot the articles in the first degree of separation. These are articles that are directly linked to by the Pluto article. In total, there are 255. Next, let's highlight the articles in the second degree of separation. These are the articles that are directly linked. These articles
When you run out of all of and it's funny that there's science now. There's unreachable articles, and they go with the orphan train thing.
The remaining 2.5% are orphaned groups. These are groups of articles which have links between each other, but are not linked to by any other articles. Many of these are groups of the articles for villages and towns in Iran. But my favorite orphan group has to be of the Acton family, consisting of 4.
Hey, so I was watching this and I was going like, I wonder where it would lead me. This rare one, if it could have been a help to me, the guy that's all. You remember in the 2017 and 18, there was a time I got 100,000 views in less than 48 hours. Yeah, I was the only one talking about it. So I typed it in. You saw how I got here. And I was very interested. Look at it. Well, here it is today. We saw how it looked earlier, right? And there's one of those numerous pillboxes built from the Napoleonic era, because everything they say, with their fake Napoleon, like George Washington, he ordered this. Oh, in case they got attacked, if Napoleon came over, just like they have other ones that, oh my goodness, if Hitler decided to come over, we'd be in so much trouble. Should do a lot of defensive castles and tunnels, and the same thing in France. Oh, what if that Hitler comes? We should build the Maginot Line, right? 142 star forts in a row, hollowing out mountains. So what are, these British line of fortification? This is a little bit more of that, So they don't only have those 4 towers sticking up. They're all star forts. that look very similar to the ones in the United States. There's that tower. Who knows what's underground? You know, I know it's not simply that tower. William Pitt, he was in on it. Well, the other Pitts were in Pittsburgh, you know, dealing with land grabbing and all of that, setting up places for the Rosicrucians. That's how they fought their wars. Here. First the attack on the land, and then they're going to attack here, and they got their banner over them is France. Oh man, with Napoleon, oh, if we don't fight him, what's going to 48 hours? We'll string him up. Oh, okay, whatever. So here's another redoubt, part of their defensive scheme. Not much of for the pictures on YouTube, is it? It's the Dymchurch redoubt. Well, here's a picture of just the inner court. It's like every other. What, this isn't something that people would want to go see, that Wikipedia would produce. Well, it's from that link from the Dead Orphans articles. Look at that picture twice. I really wanted you to see it. You can't get this picture, this fake picture of, you know, they're all small. I wanted to get the detail, but they're all small except for the, you know, the one that's, you know, copyrighted, but this one doesn't show it all. So what else we got? That's the biggest picture that you can get of it. I'm sure the women just came out to say, let's watch the ships kill the people. Kill those humans. Go, you die for your mommy. Crazy, right?
No, they were gods. They were sons of God.
And we went on their show and we were just like letting them know about what was going on. And they're very political beings. So Dave, you know, do an intro and then let's run into it.
It's fascinating to see the direction that the conversation is gone in. Welcome, guys, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, aka The Raven. That is Top Lobster, the father of disinformation. And today we have two guests with us, two returning guests, actually, from probably two of our most popular episodes. Let's start by introducing Paul of Understanding Conspiracy, and then we'll get into introducing JT follows JC. Paul, can you let the people know where it is that they can find your work and what it is you focus on?
Sure, you can find me on YouTube under Understanding Conspiracy. I've been on there for about 10 years now, just getting involved in every conspiracy you can ever imagine. But I am predominantly known for the Nephilim looked like clowns theory, which we've talked about quite a few times now together. But I'm also known nowadays for sharing ideas surrounding probably what we're going to talk about today, which is that the millennial reign of Christ may have already happened. And it's a very contentious, fast-growing topic, which is capturing the imaginations of thousands of researchers. And you know how it goes in the conspiracy world. Every 4 years or so, there's a big topic that changes everything. It seems like this is the next one. So I'm also talking about that. So yeah.
You're talking about the little season, right? That's what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, man, I just heard of that the other day and I was like, oh, what the?
That's why I reached out to Paul, because shout out to MK Ryan. He's a big fan of both our shows. Awesome guy. And he's been messaging me saying you need to have Paul on to talk about the little season. So I'm really glad we're going to get into that today. We're going to talk about a little bit of this Nephilim stuff and then we'll move into it. But before we do, JT, can you let everyone know where it is they can find you and what your work focuses on?
Well, yeah, I'm on YouTube as well. JT follows JC. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Joe Telford on Facebook. I'm kind of on all the social media apps. If you look for me, I did a movie actually called Ancient Angels, which focuses on angels and Nephilim. So if you guys are interested in that, it's kind of actually funny watching that clip. Sometimes we forget, like when we get into this space, how little most people know about this. And so we kind of give a big overview of the topic, and you know, especially if you have people in your life who have no idea like they have to be explained. In the Bible, angels had sex with women and they produced giants.
Now, you see, I'm not going to agree with that. As Bible says that in heaven the angels don't have sex. It's not a part of their thing. And again, if anybody wants to go to the Bible, there are 3 verses that mention Nephilim. And it is all, there were some before the flood and there were some after the flood. And they were mighty men of old, Gibarim. The problem is they say those Gibarim, those mighty men, were because they were Nephilim, not necessarily, because 95% of the time a Gibarim is a good thing in the Bible. You want to be a mighty man of God. You want to be a mighty man who worked for Joshua. The Gibarim is not bad. And to make this work, you have to bring in outside sources. Jasser, yes, Enoch. There is something quoted in Enoch that wouldn't have been that hard to fake. And nobody until the last 5 years ago who has been a Bible scholar takes the book of Enoch seriously. And if that's your only proof, the 3 verses of the Nephilim. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm ready to debate, and it's been there. And if you're in this chat and you think they could be right about it, isn't it your Christian duty to say, here's my great proof? You know, I'll be waiting for you saying, I want to use the books of the Bible and look at what is a Nephilim and what is a Gibborim. So that's way too much credit. So I'm going to skip a little.
Right.
Oh, here's the thing with the Tucker. He's talking about Nephilim too, I guess. And the whole clown things. There's something with clowns, but they're not dispossessed demons. The clowns,
That they're not just like some ethereal, they're not just shadows floating around, specters, fog, that they're physical. Like they're as real as the arm of your chair. And
It's gonna sound really crazy as I say this, but I thought he put it kind of eloquently, and I have a clip pulled up. I'm not sure if this, it's like a 15-minute segment where he goes in. I'm not even sure he names the Nephilim, but he describes them in detail. And let's just play that so you guys could hear this. Because
now, why can't he be describing demons? Why do they insist on calling it Nephilim when they have no scriptural evidence to be using that word interchangeably with demons? If anybody wants to argue with that, you owe it to your Christian responsibility to try to set me straight.
it's like it's a strange thing to see come almost full circle, where the talking head that was breaking down like Russiagate on Trump and kind of telling the truth at the time is now doing this thing. So like where do we put this?
I would say Tucker Carlson was telling the truth, and that all of the rah, let's reelect Trump. That's a good thing, Mr. Operation Warp Speed.
Conspiracy theorists or human beings in general. But here's the video.
You truly don't want to know any more about it.
I think I know. I think I know what's up. So I can't prove it, so probably not going to articulate it, but I think I know what's up, yeah. But
can you articulate it?
Well, I think it's a really old story. I think it's a really old story. So that's what I think.
What is it?
Well, one, I'm a Christian and I am fairly sincere about it. I try to be sincere about it. More sincere than ever, for sure.
Right, because he knows about the Nephilim, and he's not a part of the situation. We all believe that they only get to the top if they're being used, unless it's Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, maybe. Jump ahead to where, I think it got a little bit better.
With, but I do see occasionally people who I I respect because the information that they put out is considerable. I've seen this idea of a false sort of apocalypse, one that would be, and I haven't had time to look into it, but I find it fascinating. And now, as you're starting to describe this, I'm going, oh, that's interesting. Could we have sort of a let's not even call it an apocalypse, but like you're describing, a false savior, almost a false flag event, right? Except it's a spiritual one. It's not a geopolitical one.
There's many ways they could play this card. This is the issue. I can't give you the definitive script of how this is going to go down. They have A to Z of scripts to choose from, and they'll pick whichever one worked at the time when necessary, based on what went down and how people reacted. This isn't just a cut and dry. There's one plan here. They have multiple plans. They could just play at any moment, and all the programming for each individual plan has been laid out before us for a long time, and we've been in the game of decoding the media and finding the symbols and signs and the predictive programming, and what they're trying to do for us. And we know there's a transhumanist agenda in some way to merge mankind with machine, or in some way to develop a super intelligence through artificial intelligence, which will create some kind of systematic control or net over humanity where you can't break out of it. We know that's already well underway anyway, since Minority Report came out as a film, and prior to that, they've been building that, and the transhumanist agenda is clearly at play in cahoots with the AI agenda as well. So something's going on there. We know there's some weird black goo symbolism constantly being thrown at us, so they're working to do with programmable matter in some weird way, which will then shape reality and what we perceive to be something that it really isn't. They can meld reality to be whatever they want it to be. We know there's something weird and trippy going on with CERN, and we know there's something odd happening with reality itself when it comes to things like the Mandela effect, depending on where you want to go with that concept idea. Something weird is going on a quantum level where reality is malleable now, and it's not quite as cut and dry as
right. So there is no quantum level. That math doesn't work.
People would like to believe.
I would agree with that disturbing sentiment that somehow reality is more malleable. Yeah, that I would agree with that.
But that's what I'm saying. If you look at movies over the past 100 years, they've been pre-programming us with a lot of agendas and plays that cards they could play. They've been softly prepping our spongy brains with these ideas, so it's in there when it goes down. So we've already been pre-programmed to react the way they want us to react when those things happen, and aliens is a big one of them. But obviously me and Joe have been talking about this theory, this idea that, well, if the millennial kingdom has already been established on Earth, and we can see remnants of that everywhere when you actually pay attention, it's what most non-Christians would call the Tartarian Empire. What we're doing is reinterpreting that as this is evidence that Christ physically reigned on Earth for 1,000 years. If that has already come and gone, which we can get into the details afterwards, but just to get this alien point out of the way, if that has already come and gone, then there is no tribulation event that's truly about to happen. That's already happened before his return, that over 1,000 years ago. What we're living in is a time called the little season of Satan, which happens just after the millennial reign ends. And if we're living in that time, whatever's about to come, it seems
right. And this is where I used to have a bigger channel, 10,000, and it was growing when it got banned, and a lot of things happened along with the COVID and everything else. A lot of people think this movement started when I got banned, and people were still just talking about it. But again, there are people that are moderators here that have been around and know from way before. So that is the good news. And what did God say? There's going to be division, and we're going to have to accept it. We're going to have to stick with Christ. Now, I mentioned earlier something about not wanting to forget. Let's see. The Plague Islands. I'm just trying to go through that. No. Who said that he got banned? What's going on in the chat room? All right, and the robots that they can put in us right now, Anyway, so you're not going to believe. I mean, everything is coming back to the stones crying out. It's the body parts. They built it. The pre-world was built on that knowledge. So if I take this and let's just type in plague. Russia. And there it is. And it looks like a kidney from on top. I'll show you a kidney. So, and it's the same design. You know, it's a star fort, maybe. It's part of it. You know what's on the inside. You don't even have to be told. It's a star fort. And let's we'll search it and get a picture from on top. All right. Okay, so you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, incoming, outgoing. You can see the shape. If you want to put the names on it, you may find it interesting. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there were 5 in here. I think one is coming there. I wonder if that's RJ. Hey, it's Zach. How you doing, big guy?
Good. How's it going, man? I just wanted to join, let you know you're not screen sharing.
I wasn't screen sharing those pictures of the kidney. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Muchos gracias. Because, well, now they're pulled up. Okay,
Oh,
there's
wow.
the fort, and here's the kidney. I think it's a pretty good argument. Oops, closed it. You know, it's something. And the stones are crying out. I think that Paul and JT were doing a good job on the basics, but it won't be long until this is a worldwide phenomenon. And it's not like all of a sudden the banks are going to get better. People are going to stop living paycheck to paycheck. That's going to keep going. It's not like we're going to win them over with the Trump victory. We're going to get encompassed about because they think we're very dangerous, that if they breathe our air, eventually we could kill them. So I'm going to wrap it up there and, you know, have a big day planned tomorrow. Still planning on coming to Colorado Springs sometime soon. I'll keep you posted. And I'm going to let you go, Philip or Zach, but stick around until I end the show. Okay, I want to talk to you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And go back over this and realize you're going to be presented with the same thing. We all are going to be like those two guys that we just saw in the video. Wow, it makes sense if the 1,000 years has passed and Paul and JT present a lot of Bible verses to them about it's all soon. That's the easy part. But then what do you do with the Trinity? What do you do with, oh my gosh, I live in New York City or Baltimore or a town of 500,000. What do you think that's going to be like? Is your go bag enough, or is it time to start making a plan? Because, you know, this election might go off. Who knows? It could be the JFK Jr., it could be the Biden, it could be the Trumpster, it could be, who knows, Elon Musk. We don't know. But what we do know is I think you should trust the word that's written on your heart. I think you should believe the flat earth nation with its golden age past, because the mud flood was Armageddon. Me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? I know we've been called, chosen, and trying to be faithful to prove we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. And goodbye. And I wish I could remember the Finnish one because that's cool too, but I'll end with hasta luego, Kaya, man.